Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear us. Thank you all for coming. My name is Brian Morgan. I'm the chairman of the Environmental Commission in Morris Township. What the Environmental Commission does, we're a bunch of volunteers in the town. Some of us are wearing green shirts. Some of us forgot to wear our green shirts. We're just a bunch of volunteers that just really want to take care of our town. We care about sustainability. We do things like site reviews for any development that comes into town. And we do educational events, thank you, for like this, to help educate our towns about how they can be sustainable. So I'm going to very quickly hand it over to Charlie Schechter, one of our Environmental Commission members, this is his brainchild, and over to you, Charlie. Just make sure you got your green microphone on.
I've always wanted to do that, so I'm gonna gavel us in. Hello, my name's Charlie Schechter. I've been a resident of Morris Township for more than 20 years, and I've been a member of the Environmental Commission for more than 4 years. And again, as Brian mentioned, if you're not familiar with the Environmental Commission, I urge you to visit the township's website, where you can learn more about what we do. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter, which I highly encourage you to do. And you can do the same for Madison. Several of the people up here, they're going to all let you know who they are. But several of the people up here are with the Madison Environmental Commission. And I urge you to learn more about them if you're from Madison, or even if you're not. One of the things, as Brian mentioned, we do as an Environmental Commission is educate our community on how we can all be better stewards of the environment. And that is the purpose of tonight's panel discussion. Before we get started, though, I need to give a few quick thank yous. First and foremost, thank you, all of you, for coming out tonight. You're making the effort to learn new ideas and practices, and your time is precious, and we really appreciate that. So we're going to try to deliver what you're expecting. I also want to thank our 5 panelists for agreeing to share their knowledge and experience with us. I want to thank Brian Morgan and Claire Whitcomb, who are respectively the chairpersons of the Morris Township and Madison Environmental Commissions, for their support throughout this process. And I also want to thank the Morris Township administration for promoting this event and providing this space and the technology support. And then finally, I have to give a special thanks to my fellow EC member, Leslie Wentz-Jones. I don't know where Leslie is. Leslie, wave your hand. For partnering with me on this project and being just a wonderful, supportive partner. Would you hit the next slide? So, according to a 2019 report by the Rutgers Center for Turfgrass Science, approximately 20% of New Jersey is covered by turf grass. That's kind of incredible when you think about it. And this amounts to 953,000 acres, almost 1 million acres. And who knows, that was in 2019, maybe by now it's over 1 million. Residential lawns, surprisingly, account for 75% of that number. So we, all of you and us, we can make a huge impact on an individual level with what we do with our own yards and our properties and our lawns. Our goal tonight is that you're going to go home with at least 2 to 3 concrete ideas of how you can make your own landscape more sustainable. Without any further ado, I think we're going to kick this off and get this started. So Bianca Wright is our first speaker, and I'm going to hand it over to her.
That's me. Hi, everyone.
This is our first time doing this type of an event, so give us a moment while we work out our technical issues. In the meantime, I just want to also just mention, I just wanted to also mention, so I just told you all this about turf grass and how much of the state is covered with it. Well, why do we care about turf grass and what's wrong with it? So there, I think in my mind, 3 main things. It requires irrigation, which is a terrible waste of water. And a lot of that water ends up getting run off and wasted. It requires fertilization and chemical herbicides to kill weeds. And that also hurts the environment and gets into our water stream. And the final, and to me in many ways the most important thing, is that turf grass is a environmental dead zone for wildlife. And I mean insects, mammals, amphibians, reptiles, you name it. None of them receive any, as we like to call in the environmental world, services. Services being food, shelter, breeding areas, things like that. So turf grass is really a problem in that sense. And we know that there's a huge decline globally in insect life. Many are calling it a die-off, and our grass is not helping. So.
All right, then let me get started. So can you hear me okay? Good sound, okay. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you to the entire Environmental Commission of Morris Township for organizing and hosting this panel. I'm super excited to be here now, along my fellow panelists who I know and love dearly. So I am Bianca Wright. I'm a landscape designer and gardener for 30 years, and I have worked in private practice. I have worked for design build companies, a public botanic garden, and I started my own design business 4 years ago. Tonight, all of us will be talking about new ways to think about your landscape, and I will be speaking about or focus on ecology-based gardening. Next, please. What do I mean by that? Not this, obviously. I think when you look at the bottom image, right, this is oftentimes our typical suburban yard. And this shows that we... Sure.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry, that's okay. So I think this is a great little rendition of somehow, somewhere, we all do want to connect with nature one way or another, like watching birds, the bottom part of this little illustration. But doing it that way, the bottom image, comes at ecological costs. There's no biodiversity here. Charlie just elaborated on that. And I'm sure you've all heard about the serious insect decline that has been documented worldwide. Ecology-based gardening is about taking a step back and wondering what consequences our aesthetics and typical way of gardening have. It is also empowering us to take action, local action, and garden for wildlife instead. So a central question, Charlie touched upon that, is for us here in New Jersey suburbia, how much lawn do we really need in our gardens, and how much do we love mulching every year? And then possibly coming up with different designs and different practices. Next, please. Like this pocket meadow on the left, or that woodland garden, both of which I helped create. The left used to be all lawn in full sun. The right, sea of mulch within a driveway, circular driveway. So with these images, I want to show that we can, if we make the right plant choices, create abundant, resilient, and sustainable gardens that are supporting wildlife and easier to maintain. But please note, they are not maintenance-free. That just doesn't exist when you garden. I'm sure you all know that. But they are way easier to maintain. Next slide, please. So ecology-based gardening could also be called gardening in sync with nature. And so coming up, I'll talk about the following points. Next, go ahead. Ecology, go ahead. Yep, keep going. Plants, place and soil, plant behavior, and then design. And lastly, very important, land care, also known as gardening. And just as a heads up, there are a lot of links, publications, article listed. This will be sent out as a PDF with live links to you when you get the recording, so you don't have to take hasty notes right now as you see the slides. Next, please. Ecology. Plants are the base of the food web, but not all plants are created equal. Only some get eaten. I'm sure most of you are struggling to plant something that the deer don't eat, but those are not the plants that I'm talking about. Caterpillars are the creatures that we want to find plants for that they can feed on. Most butterflies depend on one or few plant species to lay their eggs on, and those are the so-called host plants. Caterpillars are the crucial first consumers that through coevolution have, over thousands of years, have overcome plants' defense mechanisms only to become food themselves for insects, birds, and small mammals. That little pyramid on the left is showing that, taking you back maybe to middle school science class. And then the images on the right, the photos on the right, are on the left, the iconic caterpillar of a monarch butterfly that showed up within the first year that I planted orange milkweed in my front yard. And the following year, I discovered that little caterpillar on the far right, which is of a painted lady on my plantain leaf toes. So I'm still puzzled every year, every time I find a new butterfly or a new caterpillar in my garden. And it definitely shows that this principle, the next button, please, plant them and they will come is true, because clearly I didn't advertise, I didn't put up any signs. They just find them. It's amazing. Next one, please. But of course, the caterpillars that survive transform into butterflies, and they are hungry too. So host plants, where the leaves need to be eaten, are one thing. Feeding the butterflies with flowers is another thing. So we want to make sure that gardens have host plants as well as nectar sources. And these nectar sources, of course, get also used by wasps, by bees, by flies. And this is where we get to enjoy the garden also, right, for their beauty when we look at the flowers. But again, not all flowers are created equal. It's about timing when they flower, it's about shape, and it's about size, and that depends on each insect. So there's also a lot of science to look into to make the right plant choices. Next slide, please. So now you may be wondering which plants support wildlife in your garden and how can you find them. The Native Plant Society of New Jersey has a great resource page. So does the National Wildlife Federation. And I think my favorite tool is that Plant Finder by zip code. If you go to that, you enter your zip code and you will get a whole list of plants with the corresponding relationships to insects, butterflies, caterpillars, which are host plants. So that is a great tool where you can find what could work in your garden.
And that tool will be in the resources that we.
Yeah, it's all on the 2-pager. Next slide, please. But as much as I am sure you're interested in knowing the plants that you should grow, I want to highlight how important it is to know which plants you should not grow. There are the Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space has a great list, the Do Not Plant list, because you can still find a lot of plants that are considered invasive in the nursery trade. So you should not be buying them. You should not be bringing them into your garden. They also have a species watch list. Those are plants that are not considered invasive yet, but are considered to soon be. If a black and white list is not really what you want to work with, these two publications are great colorful brochures that you can download as PDFs that show you the plants in their different stages with flowers, berries, and leaves. Lookalikes on the right hand, the publication on the right is really great at showing you where you can mix up plants so that you can be sure to identify them correctly on your property if you have them, and to make sure that you don't bring them into your garden. Next slide, please. So now that I spoke a little bit about larger context, I want to zoom into a single property. Or empower you to zoom into your property and think about, look at your property in terms of what you can grow there. If you look at the topography, where are little high points? Where is it dry? Where is it wet? This is a photo taken in the woods behind, close to my property. And this little micro topography, right? tree is growing on a dry knoll, whereas the skunk cabbage is in the little depression right next to it. You see a little bit of reflection of standing water there. So vegetation are an expression of the place, of the growing conditions that you have in your garden. As I said, topography, water flows downhill. So if you have a perpetual wet spot, that's where you might not want to grow lawn anymore. Instead, skunk cabbage. Instead, shrubs like the clethra that actually grow. And the parks near your property can give you ideas of what would work in your garden. I'll skip the other points. Move to the next slide, please. Yeah, go ahead. I want to focus a little bit on soil in particular, because that is where the plants grow, right? It's pretty obvious that's where they put their roots. That's where they're going to stay for the entirety of their life. So each soil type has a particular structure that dictates how much air, how much water is in the soil, what nutrients are available, how many nutrients will be available. So the kind of soil you have will determine what plants you can grow successfully. Go ahead, please. These 3 books are a fantastic deep dive, while super easily understandable, into soil. I can only recommend them. I actually read them at night, and I'm not that geeky when it comes to soil, but that Jeff Lovenfeld's really brought it home. And go ahead. Next time that you're in your garden, I would urge you, suggest to you to do a soil ribbon test and the soil jar test. These are 2 notions or 2 terms that you can easily Google. It's a quick test where you wet your soil and then just feel what you have with explanations of what that means. It'll just give you a sense of what you have in your garden. And it may explain, once you look a little bit into it, why the lavender keeps failing, or why the dandelions keep growing and spreading in your garden. And then finally, of course, Rutgers is a great resource to send in your soil. Their website explains it very well, and get more detailed information on what the nutrient situation is in your garden. Go ahead. Plant behavior. How do the plants grow? What kind of growing traits do they have? How do they grow within the community? It's all about competition, adaptation, and survival. These 2 pictures are not from New Jersey. I apologize. I didn't have a good one of a New Jersey woods. This is in Vermont when we were hiking with my family. On the left, and on the right is a picture of a Maine coast. But you can see that the vegetation, the community, is very different. And I like to think of the plants almost playing like an orchestra, like a masterpiece, right? They grow with each other. When one pauses, other ones jump in the spatial, in spatial terms as much as in time terms. So all of this gets expressed in plants' habits, in their root structure, in their seed production, in their life cycle, and in their longevity. So taking all of this in, studying the plants in their wild environment, will give you clues on how the plants may behave in your garden. Next, please. And then how do you distill this into a design? I really like this layered approach that Thomas Reiner and Claudia West have promoted, where you have a structural layer that is, these are the highlight plants, a seasonal themed layer, and then the ground cover. And that is, Claudia West was the first person who I heard talk about the green mulch. So the ground cover, the green mulch replaces the brown mulch. You plant the plants once, they're low, they're covering the ground, and they're doing what the mulch does, except for it's a living thing. It shades the soil, it suppresses the weeds, it feeds caterpillars and other critters that are in your garden. Next slide, please. So these are 2 designs. If you remember a slide back, I showed you a woodland and a really desolate place. These are now applying those strategies, the 3-layer strategy, in a client's garden. He had a really shaded lot. So we turned the lawn into kind of a green matrix planting. The shrubs, the structure-giving plants, and the taller perennials haven't grown in yet. And on the right-hand side, that is the beginning of my health strip conversion. As you see, the lawn is not doing well in the front. I just started with a little strip, and I used salt and drought-tolerant plants. So drawing from the natural environment where the plants grow naturally, and I planted them there, and so far they're looking pretty good. This was right after planting, so I don't have a follow-up photo yet. Next one, please. Now, plantings featuring native plants can often look a little bit wilder and grow a little bit taller than what is customary in the suburbs. So how can we make sure that they fit in and get accepted? And that's where Joan Nassauer's cues for care come in. It can be as simple as using branches that you have on your property to line the beds. This client and friend is making her beds, bigger, kind of 1 foot at a time by just simply moving the logs, applying some cardboard and mulch, and then transplanting plants from her garden into this newly gained plant space. The next photo over with a trimmed boxwood hedge is from Maastricht when I was visiting there last year. And they just simply, instead of planting an annual, they just planted a perennial sunflower within the boxwood border. And all of a sudden it works, but at the same time provides much more life or place for wildlife. A fence, top right, is a cue for care and gives intention to this wilder looking plant. Note also that the plants are not falling over the sidewalk. It's questionable if that 6-inch strip of lawn needs to be there, but that's another discussion. It can also be a very clearly, geometric form. I'm not sure that everybody's planting bed needs to be square, but this is what they chose. And then the bottom is the Brooklyn Museum, where Rebecca McMacken did a fantastic, diverse wild planting, pretty tall, but the artwork placed there and those really stark walls give a really good contrast and show that this is a cared for place. Next, please. Okay. Yep. So I think I've talked enough now about right plant, right place. I need to speed it up, and we'll just briefly say, please also plant them right. So how big the hole is that you plant your plant into is really important. It needs to be twice as wide as the root ball that the plants come in, and just as deep, not deeper, than the root ball is after you expose the roots there. And then plant them in the right place, right? The top left image, I don't know why that tree is planted right under the cables. That is just a disaster to happen in the next couple of years. It's really sad. Remove the burlap, don't leave stakes in. Why is the plant at the bottom left planted so close to the sidewalk? In a couple of years, it's gonna be a mirror image of what is in the bottom right. So choose where you plant your plants correctly, please, and think ahead. Next. Gardening is the slowest of the arts. I love that quote, because when you garden, you need to have patience, right? Coming up with the plant design, installing the plants is just the beginning. And then you have to bring patience to it, right? Then comes the growing and gardening. Next, please. Where there are two phases or two when it comes to caring for your gardening. In the beginning, when the plants are small, you have to water regularly. Native plants also when they're drought tolerant, the first year, that you can't let them dry out. You need to make sure that weeds don't take over while they're little, and you start with building the soil. And then when it comes to the long-term care, this garden, these two images are the same garden. The chair kind of gives it away, a different angle, but the ground is completely covered. Right, so it's a matter of now editing which plants have spread that I don't want to continue spreading, which plants are not doing as well, and why is that, and then filling in those gaps. When it comes to pests and diseases, I like Doug Tallamy's approach of the 10-step rule, or the is the plant really looking so bad? When you take 10 steps back, where are the nibbled leaves actually okay? Because they are a food source for a caterpillar. If you employ integrated pest management, you take care to identify the pests or the bugs that you see, like the diseased leaves first, and understand by using those tools, either PlantNet, iNaturalist, or the bug guide, if those are if they are truly pests, if they are putting your plants in danger. So identify them and then monitor them if they really are. And if they are not, then just let them be. Oftentimes, parasitic wasps move in and take care of it. I've watched it also in my garden plenty of times, but I didn't catch it on photo, so I can't show that to you tonight. Next, please. So in summary, ecology-based gardening, I hope I showed you, means know your property and the context of your property. Know your plants, the ones that you want to keep, that you have, and the ones that you don't want to keep, that should be removed. Know your garden aesthetic, right? What are you comfortable with? How wild can it be? How can you keep the garden in check? And also understand your skills and your means. How are you going to take care of the garden? If this is all too overwhelming, just start small. It's okay, and then have fun with it. And now I have, I think, 2 more slides left, because Charlie also asked me to talk about green infrastructure. Maybe we skip that. Yes, all right. Then that would be it for now. And I say thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to have Lois Kraus, who's going to talk to you about one of our favorite topics, gas-powered leaf blowers. Ooh.
Was the feedback from the last presentation bothering anybody? Yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah, if you try.
I know, I don't have to stand on that.
Just turn your mic
No,
on.
but the recording needs it though.
All right, now you can really hear me. Show of hands, so this will help me. How many of you are from Morris Township? How many are from Madison? How many are from somewhere else? And what other towns are this somewhere else is from? Morristown. Morristown, okay, good to know. Anywhere else? Jefferson Township. Yep, okay. Okay, awesome. And now, how many of you do your own landscaping? And the rest of you have a landscaper, yeah? Okay, good. So as Charlie said, I'm going to talk about gas leaf blowers. My name's Lois Kraus. I am from Westfield and on the green team there. And 4.5 years ago, started a group called Advocates Transforming Landscaping in New Jersey. Next slide, please. So we are a volunteer group that includes many people from your town, many people up here that have been working together to help one another get gas leaf blower bans, whether they be full or seasonal in our communities, as well as advocating for statewide legislation. And anybody is willing to join us, we meet by Zoom quarterly and have worked with, you can see there's towns that have ordinances. Right now there's 8 towns in the state. I think they're all up there. Yep, Manalocan, that have some sort of ordinance, whether it's full ban like Maplewood and Montclair, or a seasonal ban, Princeton, South Orange, Milburn most recently, Glen Ridge, Manalocan, and Morris Township. Morristown, sorry, got it wrong. Okay, so that's what our group does. Next slide, please. So as Charlie mentioned, the average lawn is not sustainable landscaping. It's a monolith. He talked about all the reasons why it is not good. And then we're left having to maintain this aesthetic that doesn't make sense. So how many of you remember Levittown? Like hearing about when Levittown came up after the war, that's what established the beautiful green manicured lawn, the postage stamp of green. That is not a healthy lawn, but that is what we've come to accept as beautiful. And you go by and you see the mulch, the brown mulched bed, and the nice shrubs, and everything is neat and organized. And in our mind, we think that that's beautiful. but from a sustainability, environmental perspective, it's really not a healthy lawn. So we have to break that aesthetic. Because we have that, that's what the landscapers give us. So they have this mow, blow, and go mentality that they want to give us what we think is beautiful. So I'm here to try to persuade you why you shouldn't want that. Next slide, please. So it's gas leaf blowers, bane of many of our existence for these reasons. They are, number one, a public health issue, which I'll get into in a minute. They environmentally are not good for plants, animals. Quality of life, all of us know, whether you knew before with COVID or you know today how annoying it is when you're outside or even in your house and they start blowing like now, how annoying they are. And then from a social justice point of view, there are also the people who are our landscapers often don't have proper headgear, they don't have insurance, and they're the ones who have to use these things for their living. So gas leaf blowers, most of them, so I'm going to talk about backpack or the handheld. I'm not talking about the big turbine buffalo blowers. Most of them are what we call two-stroke equipment. That means it's a separate oil and gas compartment. And when they burn together, the combustion is what's problematic. And it would apply to also weed whips, edgers as well, chainsaws as well. There are other gas leaf blowers, as opposed to those other tools, are highly annoying because they're used all the time. So you don't edge all the time. You're not edging for hours at a time. The neighbor across the street from me, I swear, one leaf falls and he's got landscapers out there, blow, blow, blow. So it's just like, we don't do that with other tools, but with those we do it. And there's other alternatives out there that are doing the job. And I'll talk about when and where. There's some nuance there. Next slide, please. So major source of air pollution. I don't know if you can see the picture. So the cross, that's hairs. The rocky thing is a grain of sand. Those little red circled dots, that's showing you particulate, teeny tiny, that comes when we burn that gas and oil mix. So tiny, and we're breathing that in, and that goes deep into our lungs and is known to cause all kinds of cancers, respiratory issues, really, really toxic. And not really just by the operator, within a range. So if you are walking past a landscaper blowing and they don't have the courtesy to turn it off, your pet, your grandchild, I'm looking around the room, I'm making a judgment call, sorry, and you are breathing in all those kind of toxins. So there are all kinds of benzenes and chemicals that are coming up in addition to whatever is on the ground that's being blown up. So that is a problem. It's a problem for pregnancy, a litany of diseases, well documented. Next slide, please. I do this a lot, so I'm on our team to get us back on time. So in addition to the respiratory issues and breathing in the particulate is the noise. So it's the noise we hear, but more importantly, or as importantly, the noise we don't hear. So the slide on the top is showing you sort of the logarithmic scale. So gas leaf blowers they're supposed to be calibrated that it's safe, but they really go over. So they're anywhere from 85 or more decibels. That is damaging for your ears. Again, at the operator level within minutes. How many of you know landscapers who have hearing problems? I definitely do. But even if you're near them, if you are hearing and you're near that noise, that will damage your hearing, much like, loud sirens, rock concerts. There's a group called Quiet Communities that I suggest you look at that deals with educating the public about noise pollution overall. Super helpful to know about. So that's what's showing you when we're operating them. Next slide, please. But the low frequency waves are even worse. So gas leaf blowers also have a low frequency range, which goes very, very far. You don't hear it, but you feel it. So when you are irritated by a gas leaf blower, you might not realize this. It's not just the noise, but your body is getting those vibrations, and that's what makes them so darn irritating, especially for pets, for people who are highly sensitive to all kinds of stimuli. They damage our central nervous system. It's that constant wave and attack. And they go I see somebody shaking in the back who recognizes this. They travel really far. So this is a picture that I showed in Westfield. So my house is on the edge of the circle. The one in the center happens to be my Board of Health director. If he had one gas leaf blower operating, he's about 6 houses away from me in a cross street, 800 feet. I would be able to hear that. That covers 40 homes in my area. It's about 46 acres if you're 800 feet in all different directions. That's why you hear them all the time, because they could be anywhere. Think about 800 feet in any directions. You feel like they're going all the time because you're hearing them all the time. And that's one. So again, my neighbor, he's got 2 out there every single time. So and I bet a lot of you like multiple landscapers going. Next slide, please. Environmentally, so the slide on the right is showing for a traditional gas leaf blower and a traditional lawnmower, all of the cans of oil, the gas, the spark plugs, there's dripping on the lawn, there's all the waste from all those plastic containers, which I could talk about another time with plastic. That's just a lot of waste versus electrical battery operated equipment doesn't have that leaking onto the ground. So that's part of the environmental issue. But in addition, because they are blowing our lawn and they're blowing up pesticides, they're blowing up feces, they're blowing up all herbicides, all that stuff is also going into the air. But they're also, when they're blowing away all the leaves, they're blowing away all the good nutrients, they're blowing away the pollinators, and they're denuding the soil of all the good things that you're going to hear about from Bridget in a minute. So we don't want to do that. They also blow diseases. So if there's rust or molds that you have on, think about the spotted lanternfly with the sooty mildew, and then you start blowing, and then it's blowing everywhere. So you really don't want to be blowing everywhere if you don't have to. Next slide, please. There are alternatives that are available, particularly, knowing this crowd, I know you have heavy deciduous cover. So I am of the philosophy that you blow when you have to and you blow wisely. So let's take fall cleanup separate from the rest of the year. So I'm going to use the rest of the year for a second. In the winter, in the summer, when you don't have mounds of leaves going on, you could use the electric battery operated blowers work just fine. In addition to just leaving the leaves, which you're going to hear about from Bridget, it is totally fine. In the fall, can you use them? You can. It depends on your lawn. It depends. So we advocate for, in towns where it's very heavy with leaf fall, that you have sensible leaf blowing. And different people have different philosophies. Some people say never should be using them. I have a philosophy, you have to sort of work with what you have, so you want to use them wisely. So in my yard, I do have battery operated. I have tarps. I blow onto the tarp. My neighbor across the street, who's got 250 feet back, his landscapers blow all the way from the back, all the way to the front, all the way across the property, sometimes into the storm drain. That's not smart. That's not wise. So you want to use things as limited as you can. Next slide, please. There are 2 pieces of legislation that our group has worked with Senator Smith and Assemblywoman Swain to advance that would give landscapers some rebates, that would encourage the transition off of gas leaf equipment to battery operated. They've passed through the environmental committees. They are on hold now. They will be re-upped next year. They will not pass this year because we have a litany of bills to pass. But there's definitely a recognition there. And your towns and my town, so Madison, Morris Township, Westfield, are all working toward what I call a seasonal ban. The more towns that get seasonal bans, the more you all advocate at your towns to say you're tired of 365 days of blowing, the more likely a statewide bill will pass. Next slide, please. Okay. How'd I do? 13.
Perfect. No, that was, Lois, that was great. And, I just want to personally just say that, this summer, for instance, I was biking down a road, and I'm sure many of you have seen this. They cut the grass. Some of the grass ends up on the road. I'm talking about a road. This is Lake Road here in Morris Township. Some of you are familiar with it. And landscapers are out there with blowers blowing the grass off the road. Like it's literally insanity. And I bike past, and all I'm breathing in is the fumes. So I think that, as Lois said, they may be an evil necessity for many of us, and probably are where we live, but it's a matter of when you use them and how you use them. And we can get into more of that later. All right. Next up is Bridget, who is going to talk about why leaving leaves can be important. So she's going to talk about spring and fall cleanups.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm Bridget Daly. I'm a member of the Madison Environmental Commission, and I'm a certified Rutgers environmental steward, like some other people here. I've been an avid gardener for 20 plus years, and I've become a complete native plants nerd. I recently also started offering native plants garden coaching services. This is a shot of the walkway to my front yard, which I'll talk about a little bit further. So today I'm going to next slide, please. Today I'm going to talk about leaving the leaves and the plant stems, not just the why, but also the how. I'm sure many of you here already know the why behind leaving the leaves, but we often get questions like, how do I do that in my yard? So I'm going to talk about why leaf removal is harmful and how you can implement different gardening and land care practices that are much better for butterflies, birds, bumblebees, and for you. They'll not only save you time and money, but also add joy and beauty to life in your yard. So let's start with the why. Next slide. In a nutshell, there's life in those leaves, in the form of not only living creatures that rely on the fallen leaves for shelter and food, but also themselves as life-giving nutrients for the soil and your trees and your plants. Next slide. So a few reasons why to leave the leaves. First one is pollinators. Aside from native plants and no pesticides, one of the most valuable things you can do to support pollinators and other invertebrates is to provide them with the winter cover they need in the form of fall leaves and standing dead plant material. For example, bumblebees. At the end of the summer, the queens burrow just below the soil to wait out the winter, and the leaves give them extra protection like a blanket. Next slide, please. This is really interesting. The red-banded hairstreak butterfly lays its eggs on fallen oak leaves, which then those leaves become the first food for its hungry caterpillars when they hatch. Next slide, please. So when we send leaves to the curb and remove them from our properties, we're literally throwing away the next generation of pollinators. These are just a few colorful examples of what is likely to be among your fallen leaves that are being disposed of, or that should be overwintering in fallen leaves. Lightning bugs are also in there as well. Next slide, please. Another reason to leave the leaves is birds. As Bianca touched on, butterflies and moths are not just pollinators. Their caterpillars are vital baby food for birds because they're squishy and they're protein rich, and they can be stuffed down babies' throats. Baby birds don't eat seeds. Many of you have probably heard this statistic. One pair of breeding chickadees needs 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to feed just one brood of young. Next slide, please. And so those caterpillars are often among the leaves overwintering or not ready to emerge until a certain time of the year. And then birds also flip the leaves in search of food year round, not just, we often talk about overwintering, but it's year round. that the leaves are needed on the ground, because the leaf cover improves their odds of finding protein-rich food such as beetles, earthworms, millipedes, which are seeking shelter under the security of leaves. And then also don't forget about acorns and other seeds and nuts, because when you're blowing away those leaves, those acorns and those seeds and nuts are going with them. Next slide. Another reason to leave the leaves: healthy soil and healthy plants. Fallen leaves actually provide greater benefits than expensive wood mulch, and they're free. You get soil moisture retention, nutrients that build better soil, insulation, the roots are protected from extreme temperatures, weed suppression, erosion control. It is the most natural process. And to me, this is gorgeous. This is, to me, so much more beautiful than wood mulch. Next slide, please. Another reason to leave the leaves, as Lois talked about, reduce pollution. I won't go too far into this because Lois already discussed this, but I mean, gas leaf blowers are destroying the environment, and they are very harmful to human health. Electric blowers may not produce as much noise or the carbon emissions, but they still stir up that harmful dust and damage natural habitat. You also want to consider the fossil fuel emissions from gas and diesel-powered vehicles that are taking the leaves away elsewhere. Okay, so you may be thinking, there's too many leaves in my yard. I can't leave them. They'll kill my lawn. So that's what we're going to talk about now, is the how. The problem is not too many leaves. I'd like you to shift your thinking, but it's too much lawn. So I'm going to give you 5 different strategies you can use to keep leaves and the wonderful life within them on your property. Next slide. The easiest. Keep them in your garden beds, under shrubs and around perennial plants. Less work, less wasteful, saves you money. Don't shred them. That would kill the insects that are among the leaves and also eliminate naturally occurring air pockets. You want that in your leaves. That's good for your plants. A little tip: closely spaced plants and leaving plant stems will hold the leaves in place and keep them from blowing away. We don't often have closely spaced plants, so that's something that you want to rethink if you've got 36 inches in between individual plants, which is what we're often taught to do. And don't remove the leaves in the spring. Next slide, please. So I have a little handout over there, which you're welcome to take, which is an excellent infographic that explains how you can leave the stems all winter. The seed heads are there as bird food. And then in the spring, you're going to cut them to a certain height to create what's called stem stubble. And that is habitat for stem nesting bees. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but that handout is really, really helpful. So why not remove the leaves in the spring? I'm sure you've probably heard the 50 degrees rule. Popular belief is that all insects will emerge from the fallen leaves and the dead plant stems after a certain number of days above 50 degrees. So people start removing the leaves and stems based on that rule. Next slide, please. But the 50 degrees rule is an urban legend. Doug Tallamy, who many of you have probably read, points out that species of moths, butterflies, bees, beetles, including lightning bugs, emerge all season long. Some in the spring, some in the summer, others in the fall. That is because the food they and their larvae need is not already at the same time. Think about plants blooming at different times of year, for example. So this example is an eastern firefly, which spends 1 to 2 years as larva in moist leaf litter, which it needs year round. And then they emerge as adult lightning bugs in June or July. So if you got rid of all those leaves, you're getting rid of all of the lightning bugs. And then certain minor bees are ground nesting pollen specialists that gather pollen only from late blooming plants like goldenrods and asters, which bloom in the fall. Next slide, please. Okay. Another way to leave the leaves is to shrink the lawn and add more native plants. We already talked about how much lawn there is. And how it's the most highly irrigated crop in the United States, despite the fact that it feeds nothing and no one. And every square inch of lawn, you think about it this way: it replaces a diverse habitat for wildlife with a monoculture of non-native plants, and we keep it going with fossil fuels and chemicals that are toxic to most living things. Next slide, please. So here's a great example of one of our neighbors who shrunk the lawn and added more native plants. So you want to increase the amount of flower beds, including shrubs, and that's where the leaves go. Instead of wall-to-wall carpet with your lawn, rethink lawn as area rugs, walking paths, areas for activities. There's handouts over there that can help you get started or keep going, the Getting Started Guide and the Going Native brochure. And you can do that. The simplest way to do it is just expand whatever beds you already have. Okay, this strategy is a bit more, oh, next slide, please. This strategy is a bit more work, but it has beautiful high impact results. Create plant beds under your trees. Why? The problem is that caterpillars of butterflies and moths grow on trees as well. Trees are also host plants. And after feeding on native tree foliage, many of the moth and butterfly caterpillars then drop to the ground and spend their next life cycle stage pupating among the fallen leaves or in the soil below the tree. What do you see here, though? There's nowhere for them to do that. This is pretty common. Regularly mowed lawn under trees lacks this necessary habitat, so they can't complete their life cycles. And also frequent mowing also leads to compacted soil, which leads to runoff. That's a whole other topic. So the solution, next slide, please, is to create what are called soft landings. Those are diverse native plantings under native trees, which provide this critical shelter and habitat for these insects. And so how do you do this? You can start by leaving leaves where they naturally fall under the drip line of trees. You can use, this is great time of year to get some temporary fencing that you just stick in the ground. Be careful of the roots to corral the leaves that fall so they stay in place and keep them from blowing away. Again, careful not to damage the tree roots. And you can weigh the leaves down with twigs to help hold them in place. Next slide. And then in the spring, the summer and the fall, you can start adding native plants. And you want to use seeds and small plants like plugs among tree roots so you don't damage them. And you can get instructions for how to do this, how to prepare it, what kind of plants to use at this website address, which will be a handout that'll be sent to you. So I'm going to just zip through a few examples. This is one here. That's another beautiful soft landings example. Next slide, please. And this is at the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum and Bird Sanctuary right here in Millburn, not far from us. Next slide, please. Okay, another strategy. Let's say you've done all of the above, but you still have leaves piling up on your lawn. You can make your own DIY leaf compost bin, such as this, or you can buy a pre-made one. You're going to want to do everything possible to keep the leaves on your property, but relocate them off the lawn as needed without gas leaf blowers. So you can contain some of them uncovered to use later as mulch or for compost. You can see that this is a wire fence around it to keep air circulating. One note, a deep pile is going to reduce insect survival. The insects are not necessarily going to get the natural cues such as temperature or light to know when it's time to emerge. So that's a trade-off. But it does keep biomass on your property. It's less wasteful. It reduces environmental impact. And again, you don't have that carbon footprint of removing the leaves and transporting them. Next slide. And then this is a last resort. If you really must, you can mulch mow the leaves in place. And again, please try to do all that other stuff first if you can. If you mulch mow the leaves in place, it returns the nutrients that are in the leaves to the soil. It'll help your lawn be healthy. Again, keep in mind you'll be chopping up pollinators that are among the leaves, so that's why I say it's a last resort. And don't wait until all the leaves have fallen to mulch mow, because A, that increases the likelihood that someone's among those leaves, and also it's going to be a lot harder to mow. Next slide. So in conclusion, I want you to love the leaves, not just thinking it as of leaving the leaves, because there's so many benefits to leaving the leaves, shrinking your lawn, and planting native species. And then this is a little view of a piece of my garden. We have a little recap for you for when you get the PDF of this. You have a handy action steps checklist. And then before we wrap up, I just want to read this. I read this over the weekend, and I just wanted to emphasize something that I think we can probably all relate to right now, that it's not, this is a quote, it's not just politicians and CEOs who have all the power. We as individuals also have a lot of power in the choices we make. Thank you.
Just real quick, if anybody who's standing in the back is not comfortable standing anymore, we do have an overflow room behind us. It's the room where our environmental commission meets. We have a very large screen in there, and anybody can go into that other room if you wish.
Room up here too.
And there's some room in the front too. If anybody, again, who's standing wants to find a seat. And before I move things on to Susan Landau, I just want to mention that Bridget and I had a lengthy email exchange while we were getting ready for this, where I explained that I do use that all of the above approach. So I take leaves, I put them in beds as much as I can. I take other leaves and I put them in bins for later composting. And then finally, I do mulch some leaves into my lawn. The one thing I try to avoid doing is the leaf blowing. So, you know, often it's an all the above approach because as Bridget mentioned, we live in an area where many of our properties have a lot of deciduous trees, and it really wouldn't be practical for us to put all the leaves in our bed. We just don't have that much room for beds. But, you know, and the other thing is there's often areas in your property that are along the fence line or sort of in a no man's land. Another great place to jump your leaves. So all the above. All right. Susan is now going to talk to us about soft landings under trees. Yeah. All right.
Thank you for setting me up. Okay. Well, everybody that's spoken before me has beautifully set me up. I have about 8 minutes to try to advocate for a personal pocket forest in place of some of your lawn that you don't actively use. We all know about personal pan pizzas because they're fun and they're cute and they're customized just for you. So I'm talking up personal pocket forests because they're also fun and customizable. I'm going to stay on this slide for a little bit. I'm going to argue that did I say that? I'm going to argue one of the best things you can do with a hunk of your lawn is to turn it into a little forest. Most of New Jersey was forested. We can give some of that back. A pocket forest is highly enjoyable. It feels wonderful to walk through, and it can be beautiful. And I really love flowers. They find homes in the shade of the pocket forest and along the partly sunny edges. It's super low maintenance. There's no mowing, there's no raking, there's no blowing, there's no mulching once it's established. And I'm so lazy, I don't even cut back the flower stems in the ground layer. It's rich in habitat services that everyone has talked about. It provides a big biomass of native leaves for our insects and caterpillars to eat, and a leaf layer on the ground, a soft landing that's been so well described here, where these insects can live through the winter, have a home through the winter. Am I not loud enough? Sorry. And that leaf layer, as has already been said, it regulates the soil moisture and the soil temperature. It's a blanket for everyone living there. A pocket forest provides shade, it manages water for flood control right on your property, and in these days of climate change, carbon is certainly sequestered. Another important consideration is that when you plant trees close together, their roots interlock and they're stronger together and they're less likely to blow over in the wind. We all plant one single tree in a bunch of lawn and it grows for 50 years and then we worry about it falling on our houses, so we cut it down. But if we plant 3 or 5 trees together, they're much less susceptible to wind throw. So a pocket forest kind of does all the things. Next slide. Oh, there is a delay. So this is our little forest was lawn, just like our neighbor's lawn in the foreground about 4 years ago. Over time, we planted about 14 trees, shrubs, a mosaic ground layer, and it is bordered with a stacked bluestone, little tiny layer, 2 layers of bluestone that run the periphery, a cue to care, as Bianca mentioned. So next slide. So this is 2 weeks ago. It's early fall senescence. There's not much going on. But this is the view from our walkway to our front door. And if you can imagine just walking down that little pathway, next slide, and standing in this little canopy of trees with the ground layer, it feels really wonderful to stand in and really wonderful to walk through, even with the traffic of James Street right there. Now, ours has a super wild feel because we have planted every species of plant that might want to live in that area. Number one, we love the biodiversity, but also we're learning about all these native plants. So I want to plant everybody who could live there so I could watch how they grow and work together. But I'm going to show you at the end the way to do a little pocket reforestation in your lawn that looks like a garden forest. That's very neat and tidy. Next slide. So spring is always spectacular. Now we're going to see if this mouse works. So the big picture on the upper left, you can see, it's not working, Brian. It's there. So there's lots of, I shouldn't move it. There's lots of space between the plants because we planted these about a foot apart and they haven't all filled in yet. But you can see the blue Jacob's ladder on the floor is blooming at the same time as the red bud tree. It's pretty cool. But over time, you'll see in the upper right one, the foam flower is starting to fill in. And this little inset of columbine, the columbine is starting to seed in. And this lower right area, it's a very dense mosaic of plants, and there's no room for mulch. There's no room for weeds. We do have some weeding, but the forest floor is completely covered. Next slide. And then in the summer, there are so many deer-resistant flowers that grow in the summer shade. So on the left, there's a woodland sunflower with some volunteer cardinal flower. The white in the middle is turtlehead, and even wild bergamot will grow in quite a good bit of shade. I have a little note for myself to remember penstemon because that is spectacular white flowers that blooms in the late spring, early summer when nobody else is really blooming, and it does really well at this site. Go ahead. Thank you. So on the left, those were the spring bloomers that were so spectacular. This is late summer, but it's lush, it's green, it's beautiful, it's dense. It feels great to just stand out there. And then on the right, in the fall, we get our shade-loving goldenrods and asters. They have a moment in the late fall. Next slide. So if you have a grove of mature trees and you want your insects that eat those all the leaves in the tree canopy all summer long to survive the winter, you can easily create soft landings under your mature trees. So this is a neighbor who's beginning to build soft landings under her trees. I guess I should try this again. It's not working right. There it is. There it is. Okay, so you can see she's got a very defined border and she's planting flowers and shrubs under there. So she has no more mowing there. She doesn't need to rake it and she doesn't need to mulch it because she's going to use the leaf fall to mulch it. But she's got a defined border. That's her cue to care. Behind it, she's planting more baby trees. So she will slowly, year after year, expand this to a larger lawn replacement of just soft landings of beautiful native plants for the understory. Next slide. And then Jean, who is in our audience, was generous enough to share this picture with me. This is her pocket reforestation, and it's been accepted by her HOA. You'll notice she's got, it's hard to see, but she's got a beautiful little walking path that goes through it so it can really be enjoyed. She's got these gorgeous round stones around the periphery that really mark that this is intentional. This is my cue to care. And it's so lovely that it's flying in an HOA, which is pretty impressive. So next slide. So I promised you that I would tell you about how to do it so that it's really neat and tidy and really like a forest garden. Jean Epiphan is our Rutgers County Extension agent, and she invented ornamental reforestation. So she uses a very limited palette of species. She'll 1 or 2 species of trees or shrubs, and maybe 2 or 3 in the ground layer. So you're not looking at a mass of all different plants. You're looking at a very cohesive, easy to view look. So next slide. So here she has these little gray birch, and they're going to have beautiful gray stems when they mature. They're all one species, and they have a filtered lacy light shade. And underneath it, she's used a cultivar of little blue stem because it's very vertical. It's got beautiful colors all year round. And that's all you're looking at is a tree canopy and one species on the ground layer. It's very garden-like and acceptable. Over time, that's going to spread and cover the ground, and she will only have mulch on the edge. But you'll see the very defined cut of the lawn. So that's your cue to care, and that border of mulch says this is intentional, this is on purpose. For her flower, she's used nodding onion. When it's not in bloom, nodding onion has a foliage that looks a lot like grass. So it's a very cohesive, easy area to look at, and it should be acceptable in almost any situation. So next slide. So I hope in these few minutes I have convinced you that a personal pocket forest is easy. It can provide wonderful habitat services that everybody set us up for, and beauty for us, and dare I say, a spot of tranquility. On a day when I'm feeling a little blue, if I just go stand in my little pocket forest, I feel better. And you can start small, like Bianca and Bridget, thank you, that's who you are, mentioned. You can do this, you can start with just 3 trees. You can start doing soft landings under 1 tree and add some extra little trees so that they have some community of trees and roots to lock with. So start small, start simple. And for Jean's reforestation, she did a beautiful lecture, and there are handouts in the back with her lecture recorded. And if you choose just a few species, the pocket forest is even easier to plant and enjoy, and to plan it too. So next steps are just to start small and have fun. So thank you very much.
Susan, you'll be happy to know that was exactly 10 minutes. That was perfect. That was perfect. I love Susan's pictures. I think those pictures are fantastic. They really, they let you know what you can do. So we spend all this time telling you how bad lawns are, right? But we're realistic, and we know that everybody has a lot of lawn still. This is not going to happen overnight. Even if you wanted to get rid of all of your lawn, it would take years. So in the meantime, how can you care for your lawn in the most sustainable way? Brian is going to address that next.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm Brian Monahan. I'm a master gardener, and I'm on the Madison Environmental Commission. And while you're converting your lawn into these incredible, sustainable plots, let's talk about what we can do to maintain it and be a little bit more careful about how we do it. Organic lawn care, what do we want? We don't want any synthetics, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides. We don't need them, right? What we want to do is we want to concentrate on the ground. We want to build the ground, the soil. And in that soil, the first 18 inches of soil, it's an incredible biota of fungi, of bacterium, of invertebrates, vertebrates. And what are they doing? They're creating these carpal tunnels that water can flow east to west, north to south. They're allowing minerals and nutrients to be moved throughout the soil. Microphage, which is a huge fungal mass, can stretch for acres and acres. It can deliver water from areas to areas that are dry. So we want to promote that, because what happens here is as we feed that system with carbon, and we'll talk about that in a second, it takes the carbon, it takes the nutrients, puts it in the correct form for our plants, and it literally feeds it to our plants by injecting hyphae, which are little filaments, into the roots of our plants and in feeding them. So when you hear this, somebody say, if you feed the soil to feed your plants, that's what we're talking about. So that's what we want to concentrate on. So how are we going to do this? We're going to figure out and this is going to get very fast, very quick, because it's an hour presentation into 10 minutes. So try to bear with me here. We're going to go and we're going to look and see what our soil looks like. And how are we going to do that? We've mentioned before, you're going to get a soil test. And what you do is you go to the Rutgers Soil Lab site. There's a video. It shows you exactly how to take a soil test, where to send it, and they're going to send something back. Next one, please. That's how you do it, okay? It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basics. It's very simple. Next, please. What you're going to get back is this report. And what does this report do? First, it tells you what your pH is, because the pH of the soil will help determine whether a specific plant can utilize the various elements and the various nutrients that it has at its disposal. Wrong pH, can't use it. Wrong pH, and something else can happen. So we want to know where our pH is. If it needs to be adjusted, then they're going to tell you how to do that. Lime if it's too acidic, sulfur if it's too basic, okay? Next, it's going to tell you nutrients, macronutrients, micronutrients, how much you have, how much you need, how to correct it. And once again, we're only going to use organic materials. What's an organic material? Something you can picture in your mind. It's bone meal, it's cotton, it's feathers, it's all these materials that you can picture in your mind. Synthetics are it's a lot of syllables with a lot of nomenclature on it, and you can't pronounce any of it, right? So that's what we're going to do. Next, please. Once we get that done, we're going to talk weeds. What are weeds? Weeds are the plant that are in the wrong place. So a weed to you is probably not the same as a weed to almost everybody up here on this panel, right? But if you have to, let's say you have a huge area of crabgrass. Crabgrass brought to this country in 1851 by the Patent Office for forage. What a great idea that was, right? So now Scott's have made billions trying to get rid of it. Well, we're going to get rid of it without using turf builder or whatever we call it nowadays, right? How do you do it? First, you pull as much as you can. This can be a great activity as the sun's starting to set, right? And you just keep working on it. A little bit here, a little bit there. Take out what you want. Take out what you don't want there, right? Next, there are systemics that we don't ever want to use. Pre-emergence, we don't need those. If we continue to pull when we can, and we cultivate our grass to a certain point in a certain way, we can start to crowd that out, and you can get the result that you want. Once again, you're only doing this while you're getting your lawn back to a small carpet, as Bridget said, an aerial rug, right? But next thing we want to do, the one thing that constantly comes up when I give this talk is, what about broadleaf weeds and what about creeping Charlie? Creeping Charlie is a very difficult plant to remove. It's invasive, it's non-native. How do you get rid of it? Well, if you really want to go to the edge on organic, inorganic, iron chelates. Iron lasts with, the element, and chelate is a molecule attached to it so it can easily be absorbed by things. Iron chelates are used for iron deficiencies in animals. It's used for iron deficiency in agriculture, and they're all considered organic. If you increase the strength, you then get a weed killer, a broadleaf weed killer, which is not considered organic. So if you were going to go to synthetics, this is an alternative, all right? I know it's kind of like, oh, what do I do? But that's one of the situations that we run into from time to time. Next, please. All right. In order to get air circulating, to get minerals circulating, get nutrients circulating, to increase the vigor of our plant, so we never have to use pesticides, we can really cut down on fertilization, right? Then what we want to do is we want to get a thatch layer out. A thatch is something that's built up. It's not the clippings from your grass. Those clippings that you leave on your grass, those are decomposing within 7 to 10 days. And that's adding more carbon to the system that we want to promote, as well as certain nitrogens, all right? You do this, it's very simple. It's a dethatcher or a power mower, and it just brings this thatch up, and you just pick it up and you compost it. Simple as that. If you've had your lawn has now been the playground for the last 10 years and the kids are now gone and you've been parking cars on it, or they've been running a tractor over to cut it, then what you want to do, next please, is maybe take core aeration. And this means you're going to pull plugs out of the soil. And what does that do? That decompacts the soil. It allows nutrients to get back in, gets air back into the root system, right? This is good for all plants, by the way, as well as it then will allow you, if you want to seed your lawn with something. Let's say you want to go to a pollinator lawn where you're going to just plant flowers in your lawn that are very low cut. Then you can do this because the seeds will go into these holes, and then that makes it easier because the soil contact will make it better germination, and you'll have a better result. Next, please. If you want to, you have to reseed with the correct seed. There are lots of species. None of them are going to be native except for nimblewill. Okay, you're not going to have native grass in your lawn. All right, not over the last 100 years anyway. But you can get various species that will reduce the amount of water they need, that will reduce the amount of harm that insects that now have, and Rutgers is very big on this, they're breeding grasses that have resistance to diseases and require less water. So you want to get the newest of the species, and you want to get the right species. Plant the right species in the right place, right? If it's shady, use fine fescues. If it's sunny, you can use tall, my favorite, which is turf type tall fescue, right? But get those mixtures, and you'll only get mixtures when you go to the store. You'd never find one variety in a particular seed. So, and plant it what it requires, okay? If it says shade, put it in the shade. Get the shady. If it's sunny, da-da-da-da-da. All right? Next, please. All right. When we cut at 3 inches. We don't want to cut any lower. Some people say 2.5. Well, that's a little low. The higher you leave your grass, the more vigor that plant will have, the longer that root system will have, the less water it will require, and it'll also start to shade out and outcompete those weeds that we want to get rid of, so we never have to use a weed killer, right? We also want to make sure that we leave the clippings on, as I said, because that's about a quarter of the nitrogen requirements for any typical kind of grass. And the rest of the nitrogen requirements, you can actually fulfill some of those by putting in some of the legumes, like a clover or something, which actually fixes nitrogen. So you would need less nitrogen. My grass, everybody, if you have had a lawn for 50 years, you have about maybe 60 or 70 different varieties of grass in there because everybody's always throwing some sort of grass seed on there. But what I have is a situation now where I put 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. So of my 5,000 square feet, I use a little bag of fertilizer now. Now, why do I put any nitrogen down? Because if I don't, what's going to happen is I'm going to get there's about 2 or 3 different fungi that you're going to get in the spring. You'll get red thread, you'll get some of the snow molds, and then that will cause problems down the road because you'll then start to destroy what you have and you have to add more to recoup that, right? Also, if you add too much nitrogen, you're going to then attract and it's going to promote various insects to destroy what you have, as well as going to promote some sort of various other types of fungus, right? Last thing you want to do, after you've raked all your lawns, your leaves under the bushes, you've put them in your compost piles, you've done everything you can. And as Charlie says, in our area, we have too many leaves for the size of our landscape. What's left, don't put it in the gutter. As Bridget said, you mulch it. You just keep going back and forth over it each week. After you've gotten the leaves to the correct place, the whole leaves, then you start cutting these. What's that doing? Now you're going to start adding more carbon into the system. You're keeping that carbon there. You're not going to transport those leaves, hundreds of miles away to some place that will never be used, right? And those little particles of leaves will now start to fill those little areas that don't have a grass plant in your lawn where the weeds actually germinate from. So now you're, again, eliminating weeds, and it didn't cost you anything. And as Bridget says, they deposit these right on your lawn every year, like clockwork. It's fantastic. Next, please. This is what it looks like. This was covered. This was not too long ago. I cut it twice, and that's just for the photograph, right? And you can see, you do have clippings of leaves, but it's not something that's going to blow around, and you're not going to get complaint from neighbors and things like that, right? Next one, please. Finally, this is August 31st of 2023. It had not rained in a long time, like almost every summer now, it seems, right? This lawn, this is my lawn. It looked a lot worse than it looks now, but it was dormant, and I was happy with that. Don't have to cut it. You don't have to do anything. You don't water it. In Madison, we use 1 million gallons of water a day, except for June, July, and August when we use 3 million gallons a day. Our water table has now gone down at least 30 feet over the last 40 years, right? And we use our groundwater as that's drinking water. So we don't want to water. You don't have to water. It's always going to come back. And if it doesn't, we've got much bigger problems than whether your lawn's green or not, right? So this is August 31st. What happened on September 1st of that year, we got a half an inch of rain. The next week, we got about a quarter to a half. And then a couple days later, it rained again. So next one, please. So on September 20th, that's what the same looked. 18 days later, with a little bit of rain, never been watered. Last slide, please. And as everybody says, let's reduce our lawn. This woman wanted to reduce her lawn. Her husband, as you can see, does the lawn mowing, is a big grass fan, right? So they compromised. They reduced it by 525 feet. She planted perennials, annuals, shrubs, trees. He still gets to cut the lawn. Everybody's happy, and we're much more sustainable. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Wow, thank you, Brian. That was actually really, really great. I just made a little note when he said frequency of cutting. So, many of us, and we'll talk about this a little bit when I talk about the handouts at the end, many of us use lawn services. It's just, it's unrealistic for us to cut our own lawns. But what I've noticed about the lawn services is that they come every week and cut your lawn regardless of whether your lawn needs it, regardless of whether your lawn is dormant. I have a neighbor who lives across the street from us. Their lawn guys are cutting his lawn even if there's no grass, right? Because they've been paid to do that. And so that's where I think we have to be more proactive and bold about communicating with our landscapers and telling them, you know what, I'll pay you this month the full amount, but I don't want you to come and cut my lawn every single week in August if we haven't had any rain, because they're doing more damage to your lawn. And then later on, you're going to be like, why does my lawn look so bad? Let me do all these other things that are bad to make it look better, right?
Can I piggyback
Yes.
on that? On a related note, your landscaper should not be mowing the lawn when it's raining or right after it rains, because that is going to compact your soil and it's going to cause runoff, and it's not good for your lawn. But I see that all the time.
We're going to start the Q&A portion, but before we do, when all of you registered, we asked if you had any questions in the registration form, and many of you did give us questions. So I wanted to just go through a couple of those first to get those out of the way in case you're sitting in the audience, you're going to ask this question anyway. And I think some of them are very good. And anyone on the panel who wants to take these questions can. The first question was, somebody said, the deer eat pretty much everything. It's so frustrating. It wasn't a question so much as a statement. So I'll just say this, though. I live behind Butterworth Field, and a few years ago, I got a grant to plant a native pollinator garden in Butterworth Field, which is a 20-acre field of grass. And deer come through there all the time. Susan Landau, in fact, helped me design the garden. She chose the plants. Those plants have not been touched by the deer. It is unfenced. It's in the middle of 20 acres of grass, and they just don't touch it. So there are many plants that the deer do not eat. So anyone want to just take that question about deer?
So it is important to know that when plants come out of the nursery, they have been babied and nobody has eaten them, and they're not making these bad tasting defensive chemicals. So the first year that we plant ground layer plants, non-woody ones, I would highly recommend using some deer repellent or a little temporary fence, because if they're going to get them, they're going to get them the first year, even the deer-resistant ones. The other thing you can do is plant a lot, co-plant. So if you have some lovely aster you want to grow, plant it with some mint. They don't like the mint. They don't like the bergamot. So you can fool them when they go to get a bite of something delicious, they're going to get a bite of something very aromatic that's going to stop them. Trees, we have to cage or protect until, because they'll buck rub the stem of the tree and rub all the bark off and girdle them and kill your trees. We've lost a lot of trees that way. So they have to be protected. And I use my phone. So when they get as wide as your phone, you can take the deer protection off, generally. And so the deer will eat to about 4 to 5 feet. So once they've got some good mass that's up 6, 7 feet, you can remove the deer protection. But it is a battle out there.
Someone else asked, what are the best sources of native grasses and shrubs in our region? I assume they might mean nurseries, and do we have some specific recommendations?
Okay, I have a really big mouth, you guys. I'm sorry. So Pinelands Nursery has Pinelands Direct. They're all seed grown. They're New Jersey eco-type plants. Their seeds are also all New Jersey, locally collected, all New Jersey eco-type. So Pinelands has great seeds and shrubs and trees. Gino's Nursery in Pennsylvania has fantastic stuff. There are a lot. The Native Plant Society of New Jersey. Yeah. Would you say again? Great Swamp. Well, we do this sale every year of plugs, right, for the Great Swamp. So the Great Swamp Watershed Association does a native plug sale every year, and you can just go on their website and sign up to get information. But we sold 27,000 plugs, native plugs last year. So that's a great resource. And the Native Plant Society of New Jersey has a whole list of nurseries.
Bridget's going to chime
I was just gonna say real quick, if you register for our newsletter, we advertise that quite vigorously on the EC in Morris Township. We participate. There's volunteers that we make sure to keep the price down and help it be a fundraiser for Great Swamp and to encourage native plants. The volunteers are very active. So you order online and then you come pick it up and we have the trays ready for you so that they can just take them and then just go drop them in your.
And that's every spring. Bridget?
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, Toadshade Wildflower Farm, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, they're a mail order native plant nursery in Frenchtown, but they're often out and about at events, including in Madison a couple times a year. Wild Ridge Native Plants is another one that's mail order. And you could also drive out there. That's in Western New Jersey. And then recently, as a lot of you may know, Wildstead in East Hanover is a new native plants garden center, which is great.
Someone else said, we have 1.5 acres. I don't know how it would go over in our neighborhood. And I assume they meant taking some of their lawn and converting it to non-lawn. And someone on the panel mentioned an HOA. I think, Susan, you mentioned. So we do know that, okay, maybe your neighbors. So first of all, either you live in an area that's an HOA where there's an HOA or you don't. If you don't, you're free to do whatever you want with your property. And how your neighbors react is, how they react, and how you want to talk to them about it is how you want to talk to them about it. Any thoughts on this?
Cues to care, like Bianca said, and Bridget said as well. If you put a sign out explaining what you're doing, if you put a distinct border like Jean Stone's or My Flat Bluestone or a little fence, there's a lot more acceptability. I mean, people walk by our yard and ours is a wild, crazy place. I think I don't have complaints because people think they know I'm crazy, but also because there's a grass strip and then the wildness starts. So it looks intentional, like we're doing it on purpose. At least that's what I hope.
Well, and start small, right? You don't have to go for the whole 1.5 acres right away. So start with a small corner and then build off of there. And, if you start with a little group of shrubs, a couple of trees, doesn't have to be a pocket forest right away, but that would be ideal. But start small. And as soon as there's some flowers blooming in the spring, in the summer, I think the beauty will convince everybody.
Exactly. I think so much of what we do is habit, right? It's what we've always done. And once you make a change is always difficult, but then your neighbors see that change and maybe it even affects their minds and they say, maybe I could start thinking about something like this. So sometimes change can also be infectious. So I think having the just the willingness to start is what's most important, and then deal with your neighbors as those issues come up. Let's see. I just want to give one or two more, and then we'll open it up to you guys. Someone said, I need help figuring out low sun alternatives. We often have a lot of shade on our property. Any thoughts about that?
Look at the Going Native brochure to get some ideas, Jersey Friendly Yards, and there are great filters on izelplants.com as well. And you mentioned what are your resources you took?
So the Native Plant Society has plant lists and
Wildlife Federation?
correct, exactly.
There are many, many, many plants that do not require full sun. In fact, there are many that actually prefer almost full shade. So it's just a matter of finding the right plant for the right place, as Bianca said. And last question I'll just sort of put out there is someone asked, what are the best native plants that will attract different types of bird species? Any thoughts on that from anyone?
If you were to go on toadshade.com, the Toadshade Wildflower Farm site, and you dig into the plant lists, plants by species or plants by common name, there's a sidebar there, and there's a list of plants that attract hummingbirds. So that's super cool. I love, and they're very popular, crowd pleasers, purple coneflowers, and Rudbeckia fulgida, black-eyed Susans attract goldfinches. Yeah. And that's like a perfect reason to leave up their seed heads all winter, because you will see them all winter. They're not as bright. They get more drab in the wintertime, but they're still here.
The goldfinch is our state bird, by the way.
And you can also think about berries on shrubs because they really do use those all winter long.
Okay, now I'd like to open this up to any questions we have from the audience. I don't know if they ask, just repeat the question. Okay. Yes.
Do you guys ever have a problem with too many leaves in your garden? Like, does that smother your plants, or? Because I've had that problem this summer. Some of my stuff didn't come back up, and I think I had too many leaves.
Please repeat the question.
Oh, yes. So the question was, can you have too many leaves in your garden? Can you smother the plants with too many leaves?
So yes, when the wind blows them together, right? So I don't think that it really, I've seen it happen when they just fall and they stay put, but that's not what happens throughout the winter. So it is advisable to kind of have an eye in the spring on where the leaves are left. You have probably, where the corners are on your property, where the leaves tend to corral involuntarily, right? And then spread them, pull them away a little bit. Yeah, just bring them, store them in a corner for later composting use, or just maybe there is an area, right, that is wind swept and empty of leaves. Just put them back there. And then as you leave the stems, what Bridget was describing, that seriously is the easiest leaf corral. If you leave the stem standing, they will hold the leaves in place. I don't have that issue anymore.
Thank you. I would just add, I think it also depends on the types of plants that you have. Like native plants in the right place are pretty tough. The one exception that I have found is lobelia, blue lobelia, or cardinal flower. They have an evergreen rosette that doesn't like to be covered up. So I just make note of where those are with markers, or by leaving their stems up, I can recognize them. And I'll go around throughout the winter and just kind of make sure they're not drowning in leaves.
So I just want to add that my picture that had the goldenrod and the asters in it, we have a school across the street with huge oak trees, and it all blows in our yard. Those came up through 12 inches of leaf litter that I was not able to remove. So some of them are real heroes, and some of them are real wimps and don't want to be covered. Anybody like penstemon and the lobelias that have a low basal rosette, windswept areas, you just have to kind of know the plant.
I have heard that about a foot is about the max that you do want. Yeah. And you don't want that to be, again, shredded, compressed. That should be the fluffy, leafy leaves, which again will trap air inside and allow the insects to detect when it becomes warmer, when there's more sunlight, etc.
So when you started to convert the grass at the curb between the sidewalk, is there a consideration that you have to make for the salt during snow removal and also dogs that you may have in the neighborhood that use that for stopping?
Dogs were the reason that I was inspired because the grass there just kept dying and getting destroyed. So I've not had an issue with dogs since I've added the plants themselves. And I have planted specifically plants that are salt tolerant and drought tolerant because where my health strip is pure full sun, very dry conditions, very rocky. And they're doing great there, much better than the grass was.
Through one of the other websites you mentioned, Toche, or where you got the plants?
Where I got the plants, I got them from a variety of sources, pretty much all the ones that were mentioned. I also, we have neighbors who have native plants too. That's also a great source. Get to know your neighbors who have native plants and they'll be happy to share plants with you.
And there are conventional nurseries like Great Swamp Greenhouses and the Farm in Madison who do have native plant sections. And if we visit them and buy their native plants, they're likely to get more. So it's nice to support local too.
I want to make a plug also for your libraries. Many of our libraries now have native seed libraries where you can get seeds and learn how to do cold stratification and grow your own. And then you can start swapping with your neighbors.
Hi, we're in the process of transitioning to a pollinator garden. We've made a lot of progress, but as a result of that, we've had a lot of Japanese stilt grass crop up, which is one of the most invasive species I can imagine. And you were talking about pulling up by hand, and that is keep pulling and you keep pulling. And sometimes you just cause it to self-pollinate and it just perpetuates. So any thoughts on how we can organically eradicate that species?
So that blooms basically from the first week of August through the third week of August, right? And if you were to cut at that point down to the ground, it does not have enough time to regenerate and then seed itself. Now, those seeds last 5 years. So you have 5 generations in the seed, it's in the soil itself, because it's, soil is a seed bed, right? A seed bank. But if you keep doing this, it's very easy and you eventually will win out. And you're also replacing, as you take that away, you're replacing with other plants, which now form competition for those. And that will also help reduce the stilt grass. It's a tough one, but yeah.
So
That's the easiest way to do it.
Nancy Lawson is a great resource for you. She has a whole thing on fighting plants with plants. So if with stiltgrass, if you have a canopy layer and you have a second shade layer and you pull them before they seed late August, if you stay on top of it, you can do it. It's hard though. I feel your pain.
Karen has a microphone. She's going to pass you the microphone so we can all hear you.
Can someone recommend a wildflower for underneath a tree so it would be all shade?
Sure. I would encourage you to consider sedges. They are not wildflowers, but they are a great ground cover, and they love dry shade, and they will do well. My favorite one is Carex albicans. There is also the broader leaf seersucker sedge. Those two are great in combination.
Sedges, so Sedges, sedges.
Carex albicans is the first one, because that stays like a nice bunch, and it looks very ornamental. And then I would combine it with golden ragweed. That has a great ground cover, a great broad leaf, so it's a nice contrast for leaves. You said dry shade or wet shade? Dry. Columbines for sure.
Columbine, yes.
Yep, columbines for sure. Everybody chime in.
And columbines will spread themselves.
The
They'll
the
self-seed.
goldenrods, they are the lower goldenrods, the
Wreath goldenrod
goldenrod and zigzag goldenrod.
and whitewood aster.
Yes.
So if you go to the websites, the Toad Shade or Izell, they have filters and you can put in dry shade and New Jersey native and you'll get a whole selection. If you go to Izell, it'll open up the plant under characteristics and tell you how tall it is and all the stats. But if you click on descriptions, you're going to get the gossip. It's really helpful. One example is I planted blue mist flower, and Thelma, who's here, was walking across the street and she said, that's really aggressive. And I said, good. I planted it in sun. It took me 3 months to get it out, but I moved it to shade and it's weaving itself in among everybody else and a really nice player in the shade. If I had read Eisel, and if I'd listened to Thelma, I would have known that.
Question on behalf of a neighbor. She just texted and wants to know, is there a species you recommend that you could mix in the grass or even replace the grass that will tolerate being tread upon, preferably that's native?
So Nimblewill, right, is a warm weather grass. Right? But warm weather grasses are fine. The problem is they will then go dormant during the winter. So something like zoysia, which turns brown, is a warm weather grass. Nimblewill is a native. It's fairly tough. It does tolerate some shade, and it does well with drought. Now, it doesn't flower the way you might want it to. If you're trying to find something to put in your grass that would flower that's fairly tough, there's creeping thyme. Unless you're going to, if you're playing sports on it, then you don't want to do that. Then, that would be difficult in any case. But those sort of things will actually start to help out. And, quite honestly, clover, there's only one species that's native to New Jersey. It's not easy to get, but there are other 5 that will. They're fairly tough, and they do add in the sense that they add nitrogen, though they're not great they don't actually help that many species of bees, but, it's another idea.
We have one more up here.
Yeah, just a statement, a question. In terms of grass, 20 years ago, I put Rutgers blend in for grass. I've never watered it, and it stays great all year round.
Yeah.
It's pretty weed tolerant.
Yeah.
But at what point are towns going to say enough with watering grass? If you
Well,
get up early and run in the morning, you see all the sprinklers.
Yeah. So I think
after a rainstorm.
Yeah. So what I've heard is there is one particular town that's considering homeowner gets so many gallons of water. And then when you get above that threshold, you now start to pay 2, 3, 4 times the amount that you would for the same gallon before that threshold. So I think that would be a statement. I think, as word gets out that you can leave it. The problem is you have to, as we've all said, you have to do your own lawn in order to leave it. Because otherwise, you're going to have people that come, contractors will cut it regardless, whether it's alive or dormant, right? So there's not much you can do there. But as you start to do that, I've noticed on my street, there are other people that haven't turned their sprinklers on because they feel comfortable enough letting theirs goes dormant because they see mine. And I think if you continue that actually could catch on. But I think towns are going to have to start charging for it, especially those towns that use water as the groundwater as their drinking water. Yeah. I love the idea that 20 years ago you got probably tall fescue, and it really is amazing stuff.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but it works great.
it's great. Low input.
Yeah.
Very sustainable. Yeah.
Okay. We can do, I think, one more question, Karen, and I just want to be mindful of time. She's coming back around to you. Hold on. She's bringing the mic.
Oh, just to follow up on the watering, our local utility, SMC, they do have a tiered rate structure. So if you have sprinkler systems in there, you exceed a certain number of gallons per billing cycle, you will kick into higher tiers, just FYI.
Your town does that?
Yes.
And what town's that?
It's Morris Township,
this town?
SMC, MUA, the local water utility.
Oh, good for you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so folks, I want to be mindful of time. We've taken up a full 2 hours, and I am so gratified to see the interest and to see that there's a thirst for this knowledge. So just a couple of quick notes as we close. First of all, we will be emailing a recording of tonight's discussion to everyone, along with links to the presentations and additional resources such as the ones Bianca put together. If you could, please share the email we send you and what you learned tonight with family, friends, and neighbors so we can make an even bigger impact. If each one of us tells 3 or 4 people about it, we've had a much greater impact. As you leave, please take a look at all the handouts we have on the tables here. There are seed packs, and I especially want to call your attention to the landscaper's checklist that you'll see there, which empowers you to ask your landscaper to adopt some of these practices we've talked about. Because as we recognize, landscapers end up actually controlling a lot of this, and it's sometimes very hard for us to talk to them. Maybe we're not even home when they show up. With this note, you can actually check off what you want them to do and then leave it for them, and then you can have that conversation later. And I just would like to conclude with the words of the renowned anthropologist Margaret Mead, who once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And I see you all as thoughtful, committed citizens. And once again, I just thank you for coming out, and let's go change the world.